Never thought I'd ever have to do that. That was probably one of the scariest situations I've ever been in.
It's been a while since I slept at a Walmart. This is actually a really good sleep.
How's it going, guys? Today we're going to talk about, do I feel safe living in a truck camper? Maybe like, what are some of my fears living in it? I think I can honestly say my biggest fear, and I was gonna leave this for the end, but I thought I'd tell you now. My biggest fear is being out in the middle of nowhere, early morning, waking up to the sound of no coffee. Want to know something? I don't know what that sounds like. I don't even know if it makes a sound, because I've never run out of coffee. But seriously, let's talk about it. That's good, Java. So the other day, I did have some visitors, but it's not what you're thinking. Gordon, Marianne from the Time Is Now Adventures stopped by and said hello. It was great meeting them and chatting with them about all things truck campers. They have a massive rig, and if you guys want to check them out, I'll leave their channel in the description for you. Gordon, Marianne, if you're watching this, it was great meeting you, and can't wait to meet you guys again. Cheers. So disclaimer for this video, I'm from Canada. For the most part, things are pretty safe. There's not a lot of, in the grand scheme of things, we don't have any cities with like major amounts of people compared to some places in the US. And even then, my experience with staying inside cities and stuff, I just don't do it. And the obvious reason is because if you don't stay inside a city, then you can avoid about 90% of the issues that you are playing over and over in your head about this lifestyle. Now, that's not to say I haven't had my couple of scares, and whenever I do get a knock on my door, I still have that feeling of like, oh, here we go, this is gonna be interesting. But I never ever feel like my life is really threatened. If I ever go to the US, maybe that'll change a bit more, but for the most part here in Canada, I just don't worry about it that much. I will go over some of the facts and stuff of what I actually am afraid of and what does worry me a bit. But first, we gotta go to this Walmart parking lot. It's 9:30 a.m. I kind of want to hit the road and get out to somewhere a bit nicer. That's a lot better. So, like I've said, this video more reflects the things that I'm actually worried about. I think a lot of times people have like the common things that you would be worried about with this lifestyle and everything. But I also think there's some stuff that you just don't think about. And that's what we're gonna talk about today. Which brings me to like, why did I come out all the way to this spot here rather than just go to, let's say, a city and stay there the whole time? It's a lot cheaper to stay in a city. You have a lot more amenities, a lot more choices in grocery stores, cheaper propane, cheaper fuel usually. But coming out to these places, it's a lot quieter, and by quieter I mean safer. Cities have a lot more crime, a lot more people, which tends to bring a lot more crime. Inside a city, you're more likely to have something happen. In all my years owning vehicles and everything, for like the last, well, since I was 16 years old, now 31, I've only had my vehicles broken into once, and it was because I parked it outside of a university in downtown Edmonton. So what does that tell you? I'm also less likely to have someone come knock on my door out here than I would if I was inside the city. Not saying that I've never been out in the middle of nowhere and had someone knock on my door, but yeah, that's a different, that's a whole nother thing. If you're an older viewer of this channel, I've probably told this story before to you, but I had someone, I think it was about a week after I started living in my truck camper, I was parking down by these railroad tracks. It was about 15 minutes out of town, and this was a small town, like 10,000 people. So I was out of town, but I ended up, it was -20 outside, and someone knocked on my door, and I think it came down to the guy, he was trying to see if there's actually anyone in there because he wanted to steal stuff off of the truck or break into it. So he was trying to think to himself, could I steal something off of this truck or could I do anything like that? I could be wrong too. He might have just actually been like, oh, I just wanted to make sure you were okay. But yeah, I was obviously parked in my truck, like fine. But yeah, he knocks on my door and asks that. And then it was very early morning too. And I happened to be awake because I'm an early riser, but him knocking on the door and doing that, I could just tell he was probably going around the rail yard trying to find stuff to steal, or it was kind of one of those situations where if I wouldn't have answered the door, would have he went and tried to break into the truck and then made a worse situation. So in that situation, I just answered the door and was like, how's it going? And I'd probably do that again. Your other option is them to actually escalate the situation thinking there's no one in there. Actually, no, I guess your other option would be too, is you could crack a window, call out and say, what do you want? That would probably be a better option to do. It takes you out of the situation and it puts that barrier between you and the person outside if they're not friendly. So that's something I'll probably do in the future. Read the situation and react. That's all I can say. Because obviously escalating the situation can just make it worse. But also you don't want to put yourself into a vulnerable situation. And like by all means, you could end up in the same situation living in a house. When I had my house, I had a fair few times where just sketchy situations or sketchy people outside. And there's not a lot you can do about it because your house can't move. So I don't know. Both can be difficult situations. Just try to react to them as best as you can, I guess. And the next one is a little bit more difficult and a little bit of, depends where you live or where you're parked at. But dealing with wildlife, that's actually one that, that scares me more than people, but that's just a me thing. I'm a person that I won't go in the ocean. I'm too scared of sharks. As for like bears and stuff, I've kind of grew up around them my whole life. I've had bear encounters in national parks before, and they're not fun. It's, if you're lucky, the bear walks across in front of you, you back away, and the bear just keeps going its own way. If you're not so lucky, well, I don't know what to tell you because I've never been in that situation, but in that situation, I know what you're supposed to do, and that's about all I can do. I'm very adamant now about having bear spray on me, especially out in these areas when I go for a walk or anything. The biggest thing that'll deter a bear is just being loud. So a lot of times, if you're out on a hike or something, if there's no one around, play some music, have something like that going. That's gonna get rid of any animals from actually wanting to come near you. They don't like humans. And scaring a bear is probably the worst thing you can do because then they're going to get very defensive. So if you're coming up and you're like a kilometer away and they hear music coming, they're going to be like, oh, geez. And then they start scurrying away from the sound. Yeah, you gotta be careful. You gotta be aware. You gotta keep your head on a swivel, kind of listen. That's all you can do. As for mountain lions and cougars, yeah, that's a different one. Because usually if you see it, it's been stalking you for a little while. So that can be a little daunting. But like I said, if they hear you and you're blaring music and everything like that, usually it sounds like there's more than one person or something. So they're gonna just go away from it. They don't want to deal with something that's not going to be easy food. I'm making this out to sound really scary, but I also don't want anyone to think that it's to undermine it. And then the next thing too is anyone trying to take pictures with moose or anything like that, they're just as dangerous. They will kill you. Quite literally, like don't see a moose and think, oh, it's going to be nice and everything. No, stay back. Don't go near it. They can get very aggressive, and yeah, you want to leave them alone, give them their distance. Just have some respect for the wildlife, really. That's what it comes down to. Is don't go out here looking for, like, if you start seeing bear tracks somewhere, don't go following them trying to find this bear. Leave the bear alone. If you see like anything like that, just be aware of it, but don't go trying to find a bear or something. You're gonna, yeah. And if you do see a bear, keep a distance. See any animal, keep a distance. It's like getting cold out here, you guys. It's, yeah. I'm gonna go inside actually. Okay, that's a lot warmer. So yeah, talking about animals and stuff, don't be getting close to them. Have some respect. Just stay back from them. You leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. If you do end up in a situation with a bear, I guess good luck. I hope I don't hear about any of you or myself getting into that situation. So yeah, that wouldn't be a fun one. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is something that I never hear people talk about, and what happens when you're out somewhere like this and you have a breakdown. You can't move anymore, don't have service. Maybe it's 10 o'clock at night. That can be a scary situation. The best one I can talk about is, it was minus 40 out and I decided to park off grid. So kind of when those situations happen, my new plan is usually to go park somewhere that I can make sure I can start the truck. I have a diesel truck. They don't like starting that cold. So you either have to have an engine preheater or a generator or something, or just a way to plug in so you can run the block heater. Now with my engine preheater at that time, it actually did not work. It was a lot more colder than minus 40. I think it was about minus 48. And basically the little pump on there just, yeah, I couldn't be bothered. And it also didn't help that the batteries on the truck were basically done for. So when I went and plugged in the truck with the generator and let it run for a couple hours, there was no way it was starting because the batteries were basically done. Since then I got new batteries, and my new plan is to just go get a campsite with power when that situation happens. It just makes life a lot easier if you're able to plug in and start your vehicle and be able to move. Yeah, it can be really cool and great content to come out here and do it. But if that situation would have happened, let's say here where I'm about, well, at minimum, I think I'm about an hour away from the nearest town, you're going to have a really big tow bill. If you don't have Starlink, then you don't have service out here. Those situations can turn from being a slight inconvenience to very deadly pretty quickly, especially if you're somewhere pretty remote. A lot of times if you're out in these areas that are really far back like this and it's colder weather, so let's say minus 40, a lot of people aren't going to be bothering coming out this far because it's not a smart idea. If something goes wrong or something like that, you might have the odd oil and gas worker or something like that out here, but a lot of people, they're going to be like, look at that temperature and be like, no, I'm not coming out. It's too cold. Equipment breaks around that temperature. Even when I worked for a municipality, if it was beyond minus 35, we didn't bother putting equipment out because stuff would just break. So if your truck broke down, your heating system decided to stop working, you're on your own. You got to figure it out. You got to fix it. And it's going to be cold. It's going to be miserable. And there's not a lot you can do about it. And hopefully you don't have to call SOS to come save you. So, what's my advice for that? Go be somewhere that you're not far from civilization if it's going to be that cold and you have to be off grid. Just don't be far from somewhere. Make sure you're able to actually get a call out on your phone or something if things do get bad. That's my only advice with that. This is my last point. It's probably the hardest for me to talk about because I don't even like to think about it, because it's very real and it can happen to anyone. And I don't think anyone's like better equipped for this or anything unless you just have other people there. And that's any sort of medical issue. So when I say medical issue, I'm like, if I had a heart attack, if I began choking, an allergic reaction that I didn't know about to some sort of weird bug or something, like, or food or anything like that. Allergic reactions, I guess an EpiPen, that would be your best bet. If you are someone that is allergic to stuff and you're out here doing this stuff by yourself, you probably already know this, but you probably should have an EpiPen. That would be your best case scenario. I guess that would be probably your best bet or defense. It's something hard to think about because being out here alone, you're kind of subjecting yourself to this stuff. As for choking, I have a story for this actually. Now it didn't happen to me. It happened to my girlfriend at the time. We were in Jasper going snowboarding, and it was the night before. We were camped out. We were in the truck camper. And of course I cooked steak because that's what everyone chokes on, right? I finished cooking hers, so I give it to her. She's eating, and I'm cooking mine. And then all of a sudden I hear her make a couple coughs or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever. She's just having a coughing fit or something. And then she keeps going coughing, and she has her head down. And I just look over and I say, "Are you okay?" And she just goes. And then I go, "Are you choking?" And then she goes. And I was like, okay. So I just grabbed her, did the Heimlich maneuver. Never thought I'd ever have to do that. That was probably one of the scariest situations I've ever been in. Like, we talk about people showing up to your door in the middle of the night and everything, but to have someone with you and they're choking and you don't know if you can help them because you've never had to do this before, that can be really, really, really scary. And now it made it so real in my head that, like, being out here by yourself in these places, if that happens, yes, use the edge of a counter or the table or something to try to give yourself to unlodge it, but you can only hope that that works. Oh man, that's a lot to think about. And I don't like thinking about that. This is a hard topic for me to talk about. I've had to stop and pause on this for a while here because just thinking about it, and it just goes around in my head like what ifs and what could happen and stuff, and it's not fun to think about. And I love being out in these places, and I'm not going to stop coming to these places because of that. Like, honestly, the same things could have happened to me living in a house. This is just life. These are scary things that can happen. I'd say most of the things that can happen to you living this lifestyle can also happen to you living in a house. I don't see a reason to fear it. And I don't see a reason to fear just life in general. If you're going to be out here doing this kind of stuff, and that this is just part of the risk, and you just have to try to mitigate it, try to be smart about it, try to have some awareness about everything, and just don't be blind to things that could go wrong. I get that most people will be like, where I live, you couldn't just park anywhere because people will come after you or vandalize or whatever. And that really sucks. But where I live in Canada, I don't experience that kind of stuff. Like I said at the beginning of this video, a lot of Canada is generally pretty safe. I don't worry about other people every day. I worry mostly about like stuff that can happen out in the backcountry, stuff that'll happen that's kind of stuff that can happen when you're alone that can be made very much more difficult to deal with from being alone. Now, to make you guys feel better about me, I do carry a decent first aid kit with me. So don't think I'm completely out here medically unprepared. But yeah, that's what I carry with me. As for like any other sort of protection and stuff, I have my bear spray. Well, I have 2 cans of bear spray. I keep one in the truck at all times, and I keep one in the camper. And usually the one in the camper, it just comes with me anytime I go outside. That's about the best I can do. So I have an axe too, if I want to go full lumberjack. That's for the cobra chickens though. If you know, you know. Okay guys, that's going to be it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. And I can't wait to take you with me on the next one. Later.